Today, evil struck a Catholic school in Minneapolis. 2 children murdered, dozens wounded, and as usual, the left has already defaulted to gun control sermons while the real culprit, a hate-fueled ideology, goes unexamined. Well, we're not sticking our heads in the sand here. We're going to get right to the root of why today's horror took place. Welcome to Closing Argument.
4, 3, 2. Closing Argument with Whudson.
Today's show is brought to you by Integrous Risk Solutions. They stand ready in these uneasy times to provide real physical security for your HOA, your school, or your business. They employ former military and law enforcement professionals, canine units, advanced surveillance, all affordable and on demand. Contact me at whudson at integrousrisksolutions.com or call 763-445-9482 to arrange a free, no-pressure consultation. This morning at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, a deranged shooter opened fire during a mass. 2 children, aged 8 and 10, were killed, and at least 17 others, mostly children, were injured. The suspect, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, a former student, died by suicide. The FBI is investigating this as domestic terrorism and a hate crime directed at Catholics. The manifesto left behind by Westman included disturbing messages, phrases like, "for the children," "where is your God," and threats against Donald Trump that were all scrawled on bullets and magazines. Now, when this news first broke and was still developing and we didn't know who the perpetrator was or what their motivation was, the focus was appropriately on reuniting families and grieving for those who had been harmed or killed. But it didn't take long for the incident to be weaponized for political effect. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey held a press conference and had this to say.
And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
This isn't the time for thoughts and prayers. He's standing outside of a church. He's standing outside of a crime scene where Catholic children and their caregivers were just gunned down. And as he notes, they were praying at the time of the attack, but in spite of knowing that, he comes out with this extraordinarily insensitive comment about their faith and, by extension, anyone who shares it. Now, listen, I didn't want to make this the subject of a podcast today. I didn't want to take to X with political commentary in the immediate aftermath of this horrific tragedy. As several of my colleagues and conservative commentators have rightly noted, we should be able to take a moment to simply grieve and support the victims and their families before turning matters to public policy and politics. But unfortunately, I can't do that. You know why? Because the left won't. Within a couple of hours of this story breaking, Minnesota House Democrats had a post on X framing the attack as another example of gun violence, clearly steering the conversation away from the identity and ideology of the perpetrator to their pet issue of gun control. And as already stated, Jacob Frey gets up in front of the press and decides to thread gun control rhetoric into his remarks. That jab about thoughts and prayers, that's a well-worn piece of gun control propaganda. And then there was this from Governor Tim Walz, who was slightly more gracious than Frey, saying, "Keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in your thoughts for action." We all know what action he's talking about. It's certainly not cracking down on criminals who commit actual gun crimes. That's not a Democrat priority. It's certainly not ratcheting down the rhetoric, as Walz committed to doing after the assassinations of Melissa and Mark Hortman earlier this year. He continues to engage in dehumanizing rhetoric, which incites hatred and, for some crazies like today's shooter, may inspire violence. Look at this from just 2 days ago.
Think of how easy it would be to be a damn Republican. Oh, what should I wear today? This stupid freaking red hat. What should I say today? I don't know. Just make sure it's cruel. Who do we listen to? That guy. Oh, the felon in the White House? Yeah, listen to him and that will be fine. Now he's talking about burning flags. He's going to have flag burning or whatever. Because he knows there's a hell of a lot of flags with his picture on it that are going to get burned. There's a whole lot of that kind of crap that people are sick of. And I have to tell you, we can have our internal decision-making, our internal healthy debates, but I refuse to believe we do not have the luxury to fight amongst ourselves why that thing sits in the White House.
Now, some conservatives will say and have said that we should take the high road here. We should just let the left be the left and not get down in the gutter by joining them in a political conversation at this moment. But that's loser talk. The luxury of giving this horrific event a buffer of silent reflection was stolen from us all when the Democrats decided to immediately politicize it. And there's no honor in letting them set their narrative, especially when the truth is so crucial to highlight. Let's be clear, what happened today wasn't about guns, it was about evil intent, religious hatred, and twisted ideology. The cowardly and psychotic perpetrator of this crime was a man who identified as a woman and made it very clear through his manifesto posted to YouTube that he was motivated by the desire to harm Christians, conservatives, and even the President of the United States, all for ideological reasons. Put simply, this was terrorism. Pivoting from that reality to trot out tired gun control rhetoric is abhorrent and shameful. And I, for one, operate under no obligation to let that go unchecked. The stakes are too high. The consequences too deadly. Pushing back against the evasion, conflation, and outright lies of the left in this moment is precisely what must be done. And I couldn't possibly care less whether that's perceived as high-minded or sporting. It's right. It's correct. It's true. And that's what I'm here for. Jacob Frey wasn't done making a fool of himself after telling us a shooting at a church isn't a time for prayer. After the identity of the killer was released to the public and people started to draw the obvious and logical connections between radical gender ideology and the motivation for this attack, Frey came out to defend not the victims of today's shooting, but the trans community. Listen to this.
And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone.
This is an example, an incredible example of leftist priorities. Frey is clearly more concerned about mean tweets than he is about the ideology which fueled this horrific attack. And listen, there's no question that violence is intertwined in gender ideology. It's part of the deal. It's inherent to the movement. Here's Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who's now running for U.S. Senate, sporting a t-shirt with explicitly violent imagery. Here's an image from the killer's video manifesto where you can see a bookmark with a rifle superimposed over a rainbow flag. These are not isolated expressions of violent intent. That t-shirt was not homemade in Flanagan's basement. That bookmark was not a personal crafting project. These items and items like them are mass-produced and available for sale. That's because there is a niche market for violent imagery explicitly branded within the trans movement. That's indicative of a community trait, not a couple of isolated weirdos. This is what their movement believes. That's why they felt empowered to invade a committee hearing room at the Minnesota House earlier this year and physically intimidate and harass elected representatives. What you're seeing here is a felony caught on tape. And a big part of the reason why they feel so empowered is because they get away with it. No one was arrested for committing that felony. No one spent a night in jail. No one was brought up on the charge. No one is currently sitting in prison as a result. And that is a conscientious policy decision made by Minnesota Democrats. They enable this aggression. They incite it. They allow it. And when people feel both entitled and protected from consequence, there's nothing they'll think twice about doing to those who they consider to be enemies. Now imagine, just for a second, if the roles were reversed here. Imagine if someone identifying as a Christian were to show up at a pride parade and start opening fire, striking 17 people, killing 7, including 2 children. Would the Democrats hesitate for a second to deploy every rhetorical tool at their disposal to villainize conservatives and Christians? Of course they wouldn't. The only difference would be on our side. We'd be condemning the attack and highlighting how it goes against our ideology and our religious beliefs. But they can't do that. Instead, they defend their community and present any criticism of the ideology which explicitly calls for this sort of thing as hate. Well, listen, I do hate murder. I do hate terrorism. I do hate lies. And that's the actual high road. That's the actual high ground, hating evil and refusing to tolerate it. That's a virtue, not something to be ashamed of or shy away from. That's it for today. For X subscribers, YouTube members, and audio podcast subscribers, be sure to check out The Smoke-Filled Room, where I cover a wider range of topics and have a bit of fun. One project I have on the horizon is a commentary on The Handmaid's Tale, which should be a lot of fun. Join now for immediate access. Take care.
Our agents receive extra training over, way and above the state minimum standards in order to be able to respond to any issues and be able to handle all situations.
In an uncertain world today, Integrous can provide solutions to help put a little certainty back into our daily lives.
Law enforcement used to provide resource officer positions throughout a series of schools and rotate around providing security. Now they're so short-staffed that they're having a really hard time covering schools. It doesn't need to come to where we have an active shooter for them to take steps to privatize security within the school so they can fill those security gaps.
Integrous Risk Solutions ownership is comprised of a combination of a former special operations sergeant, assistant fire chief, federal law enforcement officer, former Army officer. That unique combination has allowed us to provide solution to various clients.
Our agents are level-headed, they're able to de-escalate when they need to, and they know when to act and when to be still. That's the Integrous difference.
We'll get into training, providing active shooter training, employee and staff training when it comes to dealing with a situation that arises, turns into a 911 call, all the way through the solution or resolution of that situation.
We believe that in Integrous, we're a family. It's important who we hire and who we have working with us. If it wasn't for the agents up, that's who makes Integrous.
They're not just there to be a guy with a gun or a girl with a weapon. It's to provide security and protection for the people, but also safety.
We've seen in the industry that training is where it lacks. That's the money that most people spare, is training on the employees. Our employees are our investment. And so we want to invest as much training, as quality training as we can, because a better trained employee can respond to a situation more methodically with a clear head.
Final product of that is a superior service to our client. And again, with integrity and being transparent and to our client, both to our agents and our client, that family sense and that pride in our training and bettering ourselves daily, we're providing top level quality to our clients.
We can support after-school events such as basketball, football games, proms, off-site proms. It doesn't matter what it is. And we have the ability to scale and provide the number of security staff members that are needed for each event.
And we keep getting hired back again and again and again because of our honesty and our ability to perform.